Welcome everybody. This is very weird for me to do. I've never really done any type of content in this format, but I really want to start doing it. I feel like I've gotten a lot of inspiration, like from people in the scene coming out. A lot of Victorians that are just making their own content now, separately, and people producing content is just it's just good to see in the scene. It keeps that scene very healthy, and just from different people, you might be able to see a different perspective from me. You never know. You might get something different. But for now, I just wanted to touch over my whole year in Smash of 2022. It is currently Christmas Day, and I'm just here reflecting on what kind of a year I've had. It's been really good. I feel like I definitely have improved. It's the thing is with Smash is not very. It's not a linear improvement. That it's not a linear line that you can see when you're improving. For the most part, I do feel like I have improved a lot, both mentally and within the game as well. Mentally, especially, it's something that I've had to overcome. It being super difficult to deal with. As you can see now, I've just gone over through some footage that I had when I went to Melbourne pre-Arcadian. This is a one that I came fifth at and beating a few people, but I'll go over that later when I go through all the brackets that I did decently well at, and some that I didn't do well at either, and I'll go over that and what happened and whatsoever. But for now, I just want to go over a couple things. So with Cloudy, I'm going to call it the Cloudy Circuit because this is what happened. Like I traveled at the start of the year. I decided to, with my job, start traveling a little bit more. And I thought when I am traveling, then may as well just be going out to different Smash scenes. It's super convenient with my work and how I can just work on the road and visit different sites. But so I'm very grateful for that. I have an opportunity to be able to go and see each different scene. This all started at GVP, so in Newcastle when GVP was actually ending on March 27th. We got a crew together, Scully, Mid Strange, a couple people, just to go and have a look. And like, because I've been to GVB before the year before, so 2021, and on March 27th, I believe, yeah, I I decided let's go for the last time. It was a wonderful venue. I loved it. And so that's where it started. Sort of, I got the bug for traveling. Like staying in another place and like viewing the scene and like hanging out and everything. So it was just something that I sort of had to do. With Smash, I'm a very like I don't like being online. I like to be in front of people. I like to be able to talk to people. I'm a more communicative. I'm an extrovert. I like to talk to people. I don't like to be sitting behind a computer. Ironically, I'm right here. But this is a way for me to be able to connect to people that might feel the same way. You never know. So the Cloudy Circuit began in March 27th, I believe, and it went all the way till recently. December 7th was the last time. So I was in Perth for me and my partner's 3-year anniversary, and while we were there, I decided that it would be fun to just go see the Perth scene because she also knows a few people from the Perth scene that are really nice and lovely, and I'll go into that as well. Everyone that like came up and said hi to me or like spoke or asked for friendlies or anything like that, like it's just it's been an experience. But so we went to Perth, I went to a couple venues there, really enjoyed my time there, and I'll go into pros and cons of that. So in total, I went to Newcastle once this year. I went to Canberra twice, one for an Arcadian and one for the monthly. To Melbourne about 3 or 4 times. Its memory's a bit hazy there because Melbourne's my most visited state, and it's just like second nature for me to go there now. It's just like I feel like as much as I don't communicate with a lot of the Melbourne people, I still feel like I'm a part of them, and that's thanks to the community that's grown there and everything. All the lovely people that I talk to whenever I go into tournaments that ask for friendlies, and it's just the attitude that people have in Melbourne that I seem to be attracted to, because it's a lot of like grind set and like learning and pushing each other on to improve. It's not very close-minded. People seem to be very willing and open to help the next person to get better. because that's what they want. They want people to get better, to be able to beat them, and so then they know a way to beat other people. So it's just a constantly growing state there. I also went to, obviously, Perth once towards the end of the year in December. And so I'm going to go into the pros and cons of each tournament. Pros and cons of each scene, tournament, traveling there, whatsoever. So me being Sydney based, some places were a lot easier to get to than the others. For example, Newcastle, we went on, I believe, Friday night. Memory's hazy, it was very early in the year. We went and we stayed in an Airbnb. Super nice place. We just left in the morning. In regards to, I haven't been to the new Smash OP, which I have plans to do, and I'll go into detail later in this video as well, what I'm going to do in the future and everything. But like, for what GVP was and what the community did bring, it's a very niche and tight community. The smallest that I've been to out of all of them in Australia, but it's definitely full of heart. I feel like everyone is very helpful, very nice, and I don't know, I've got like a warm feeling with Newcastle. I love seeing all the Newcastle boys whenever they come down to Sydney, do well, especially. But yeah, so in regards to GVP, it was one of the best venues I've ever been to, purely in the fact that, like, rest in peace GVP, by the way. GVP was beautiful in terms of the location. The location was really nice. Good parking, decent parking, not good parking, but Josh, the guy who was running, I think it was Josh, the guy that was running it, was super nice, super lovely. I hope him and his family are doing well. But it was just lovely to talk to all the people there. So, like, it was the first time I've really been to an internet cafe for fighting games, so it felt really nice. It just felt like a proper, like, couch setup. Like, that is the couch setups of couch setup. So it didn't feel like I left my room. Basically, I went to someone's house, and I think that's what the niche part of it was, where you felt at home. And that's why I think GVP, for everyone that got to experience it in Smash 4 and maybe Brawl, I don't know if it ran in Brawl, but Smash 4 and Ultimate, I think they got something really special out of that venue, and it's amazing, the history and learning everything from it, because I've heard so many stories about, like, anything like smudges on the floor to, like, small details of chairs and everything like that. So it's a lovely place. In terms of cons, I do remember it getting a bit stuffy in there, and that's in the nature of, like, guys, like, gaming there. This, like, it's always going to be like that when there's not much ventilation, just the aircon, and you're just letting that sweat flow. But that was probably the only fault I had with it. Obviously, I get that whenever I travel, that, like, I'm going to be traveling a long while, so that's a con, but that's everywhere, so it doesn't really matter. So not too many cons with Newcastle. I just really hope I can go back again. I'm going to go soon. But yeah. So Newcastle as a whole, in terms of tournaments and the people, super lovely. Now, the atmosphere is something I wanted to talk about in multiple details with multiple scenes. Well, not scenes so much, places. So there was some places that I just didn't like the atmosphere. Newcastle, I've been to Newcastle actually a few times, but only once for Smash this year. I went and I just don't blend well with the Newcastle people. It's not that, I don't know how to explain it, but they're not my people. And I feel like I feel very out of place, and it's just not for me. For that reason, I don't think Newcastle would be a place that I could see myself living or being around, or, like, doing much there. In terms of the city itself, the scene is lovely, but yeah, it's just the whole city itself. Now, so that's Newcastle in a sense. I didn't want to make this video too long. The next one is Canberra. Now, Canberra is very surprising because it was somewhere that I didn't think I was going to go this year at all. But when all the Arcadians started to get announced this year, there was Sydney that got announced, Perth that got announced, and there was one for Canberra, and I thought, wow, that's very interesting. I'm like, Canberra, I've never been to Canberra, and Canberra's like a 4-hour drive. So I thought, you know what, let's go. Went with a couple of mates. We went a bit strange. And I went there purely just to see the scene, because Arcadian is something that like was for me. I ended up going to 3 Arcadians this year, which was pretty nuts. But it's somewhere that in terms of tournaments, it is such a nice venue. You're in a uni room, so you've got all the equipment there, all the power that you need, the projectors and all. It's just the setups that you need. When you're there, it's actually really nice, and playing everyone there, it's super good. The tournament etiquette is something that's really nice there. I'm not going to go into tournament etiquette with Newcastle because it's sort of the same with Sydney, but with Canberra, it felt slightly different. A little bit the same, but slightly different. I really enjoyed my time in Canberra. In terms of tournaments, so going on to my record in Canberra, it was the first time I actually went into a bigger tournament, being the first seed. That was for the Arcadian. I unfortunately ended up coming second to Hoops. Hoops played amazing, and into a matchup that I really don't feel comfortable with, into Young Link. I can blame the matchup all I want, but like, he played amazing. Like, he played super well, deserved it, and I'm so happy that he won. It was either going to be me or him, and I'm happy it was him and no one else. But yeah, it was. I did get a couple good wins and a couple of clips. During the day, there was Squad Strike. Oh no, it wasn't. It was Cruise, and I ended up taking 8 stocks in one of the crew battles, which is really cool. But yeah, it was super nice. So I went there for the Arcadian, which was in one room in the uni, and then I went for the monthly, which was in another room. It was just like 2 stories up. And for the monthly, I ended up coming fifth, I believe, which I was super happy with, because I was seeded to only get 9th, I believe. And overall, with my tournament results over the year, I feel like I have a tendency to either place. Very rarely I will place below what I'm seeded to. So I'll place either my seed or do a little bit better, which you really can't complain. I'm not going to be like winning tournaments off like 9th seed, generally speaking. But I'm always usually around that mid-range and being proper mid-level. Pros and cons with Canberra is it's not somewhere I would live. Canberra is very how do I say it? It seems like a place where people go to retire for me. The people there are amazing. Shouts out to the TOs, the players. I don't want to name names because I know I'm going to forget people and I feel bad. But there's a lot of people that I have on my mind, and I get happy when I see at tournaments. And I'm super excited for the action coming up in January, which I'll be going to, and going to the pre-locals as well. So I can't wait for that. Now, in terms of traveling there, it seems to be okay. Obviously, with just driving there, it's fine. But I don't know about the airport or anything like that. And just watching me flip, it's 3 times onto stage against Flo. Perth, with Canberra, I did enjoy the tournament atmosphere and the people, but I feel like the atmosphere in general as a city is a little bit strange to me. It's just not like something I'd like. That the restaurants closed like on a Saturday. It was closing at like 8 p.m. on the main strip, and I'm like, we just finished bracket and trying to get some food, and we ended up getting some nice pizza, which is good. But yeah, if I could go into food, I'd go into all the places that I've been to in Australia so far and what I've liked. But that's might be another video. Who knows? So with Melbourne, I pretty much went to every tournament. Bar Sunshine. I didn't get a chance to go to Sunshine just because it didn't match up with my schedule. But I really would like to go back, and obviously I'm always welcome to Melbourne. At least I think so. I love all the Melbourne guys, and yeah, thanks to them for showing me like just a good time. So in terms of pros and cons to tournaments, I feel like with pros, this is both a pro and a con. It's really sweaty. It's in terms of like the skill that there are at tournaments is very like it's very hard to when you're versing O tours. There are tours that like are just phenomenal. Like they're really good at the game. You very rarely see people that are just getting started, and I think that's the problem with in terms of Melbourne scene is just that like the skill gap is so big that it's hard for newcomers because I know myself if I was to start off fresh as a new player and would have went to Melbourne straight away like an EBS or something, I would have freaked out. But thankfully, credit to the players and the TOs, they're very friendly and welcoming of people. Now, in terms of atmosphere in the city, so I'm very mixed with this because I feel like I love Melbourne. I love Melbourne, but certain parts of Melbourne and certain times of Melbourne, there is a lot of people that sort of made it good for me and then made it bad for me. There were times where in hotels that I was staying at in certain places that I got booked in, I'm not going to name names, but it was one of the like some of the worst experiences of my life. But I digress. With how the city is, I do think it's a much calmer Sydney. I do like the people there. They're a lot less angry than they are in Sydney. I feel like people in Sydney just aren't my people either. They're just very. I'm talking about the just wider community, not just the scene, not the Smash scene. But yeah, it's just like the people are much calmer in Melbourne, at least from where I was. There is a con with tournaments. It's just that a lot of them are sort of hard to get to if you don't drive, because Melbourne is so big. The tournaments are all split. So Pixel's on the right hand side, on the east, and then you got Sunshine on the west, and then you have Temple and EBS both in the city. Crossing that from the west to the right, from the east to the west, it's very hard to, especially when the traffic is really bad. It's something I found when driving around the city. Everywhere else in Melbourne is amazing. The way the freeway works, I loved. I loved. I felt like I was zooming. Like it was constant moving, constant flow of traffic, and something that is so hard to come back to in Sydney and have the realization is just like how bad you have it and how good Melbourne has it. In terms of travel, it's not it's not the best, it's not the worst for Melbourne. There's a lot of worse places. Now, overall, I did think Melbourne was amazing. I love all the people there. The tournaments, in the actual regards to the spaces, my favorite is Pixel. You can't go wrong with Pixel. Pixel is just an amazing venue, somewhere that you can go have a drink. But that's the balance you have to have. It's going back to what I said before. Is it is a very sweaty tournament. It's not one where very rarely you can go have like a really good time without thinking about, oh shit, who do I have in next in bracket, or I've got to make this mad losers run now. I can't enjoy myself or hear myself think because there's like music and a lot of people going around and talking. The Ranny Hall, I loved. I loved. The only thing is it just feels a little bit too small. But the Ranny Hall is such a nice venue, very niche and like it's got the old school vibes, but it's very nice. The only complaint that I have is with people playing their sets on the same level as the crowd. It's something that I find I had to overcome playing against Nop on stream or having a whole city against you is just one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And looking back on my year in 2022 is something that I needed to try and learn how to master when playing out of state. This also happened in Canberra, and I believe a little bit in Newcastle, but not too much. But it's getting cheered against you, and it is the nature of the sport, of the game. and this will happen at majors, and I've also dealt with this at major. Oh, I need to add, I also went to Adelaide. So Adelaide as well, so I'll add Adelaide to the list. Playing in an interstate tournament is very rough on your mental, and I'd like to go over it in another video, but just to summarize it, it's something that has to be learnt. It's not something that's taught, and you sort of have to go through the motions with it, because I feel like with playing interstate, it sort of prepared me for when I play in majors. Obviously, I'm not going that far, but when versing people that are genuine, that are better than me or worse than me, I find I crumble. So it doesn't matter who I verse. And it's slowly starting to get better. I won't say I'm the best at it now, but I have found some ways to deal with it, and like sort of try and beat it. But going into the Arcadian in Melbourne was very hard for me. It was out of my comfort zone, somewhere where I felt like I was the villain. Not so much so that like they were treating me bad, it's just that they were treating the other person so good. So I'll go into the bracket then very soon. But I did enjoy my time in Melbourne for the most part. I'd like to thank everyone that obviously was there. Going on to the next place that I visited, I didn't mention this at the start, but I did visit Adelaide for Big Cheese. So in total this year, I went to 3 majors. I went to BAM, Phantom, and Big Cheese. Big Cheese was a very last minute decision. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it with the amount of leave that I had at work, but I made it work. And Adelaide is a place that I have very mixed feelings about. In terms of the community, I didn't really blend in with a lot of people, just because of how many people there were there. I was more with the interstaters that I already know and love, but I'd love to communicate with a bit of them more. I do know a few people from South Australia that I will give credit to. Anyone that spoke to me, please, and anyone that was nice to me and like came up to me, like, you guys are awesome. When I went to Big Cheese, I went to both the major and the pre-local, the medium cheese, which was on the Thursday. And my performance there was actually pretty good. I ended up coming 17th, and I was seeded to go 1-2 or 2-2. And I'll go over my wins in the bracket later. But I found I felt really good going into the weekend. Then going into Big Cheese, I just didn't do very well. I placed my seed, which is what every major this year I've done, which is, you can't complain about really. It's just, I would love to do better, but right now I'm just going to let time play its course and trust the process, because I know I am doing the correct things to get better, and I will see some gradual growth eventually. With Adelaide, in terms of the atmosphere, I found it extremely unsettling. Now, not saying that it was bad, but it was weird. And anyone that saw me that weekend knows that was my catchphrase, because I just felt like in a weird film, an indie film that was just like, I was not meant to be there. Like, I was in limbo. Some of the places were actually really nice and beautiful, but it just weirded me out that like Adelaide's the flattest place I've ever been to. And when I say flat, I mean flat. Like, you'll never see another place that is flat as Adelaide. Like, there's no hills, nothing. The only time I went up was going up a parking lot, and that is it. I did rent a car when I was in Adelaide just so I can get around, and obviously pick up the homies from the airport. I did enjoy my time there. It's a very, in terms of viewing, it's probably it was my favorite viewing, with a very close second to Phantom, purely because Big Cheese had a bar right there. Because we were right there with the players, it felt more homey. Like, it felt like I was there to cheer on my guy, and he could hear me, and you could see in the reactions of Chip versus Taicho, it was just I was in utter disbelief watching it, and like it was an experience that I will never forget. Watching like someone from your state do super well. It's it's really like it gets you in the feels, because it's, you know, that these people have been grinding and doing everything that they can to just try and get better, and watching them do this, it's super nice to see. So that for overall Adelaide, I did enjoy myself. With Cloudy Circuit going towards the end of the year, it was ended in Perth. So as I had mentioned before, Perth, I went with my partner for our 3-year anniversary, and we ended up staying at a hotel in the city, and I was able to go to 3 events while I was there. So one of the sub-monthlies, so the bi-monthly event, and the, what else was it? The bi-monthly event, Enigma, which was on the Monday. So I went on the Sunday, then the Monday, and then on the Wednesday there was the Escape Portal. Now, Escape Portal, it's everything it's cut out to be. I really enjoyed it. That's like a proper internet cafe where they have setups out the wazoo. Not just Smash setups, but like even like PS4, PS5s even, and just stuff like that. It just felt like it was nice and proper. I also went to Enigma, and the Subi, Smash at Subi, which was the bi-monthly. With the monthly, I ended up coming 3rd. Super happy with the results. First in Squad Strike, and yeah, it's a lovely place. The people that are at Perth are just so lovely, and I don't know, I just blend well with them. I feel like in terms of every part that I've been to, I feel like I fit in the most at Perth. I feel with Perth, it was just a nice environment to be in, even as a spectator. So going there, you felt nice and welcomed. Again, I'd like to thank the TOs that were there and made me feel welcome, and just the players, like the small group that would talk to me, and just anyone that came up and asked friendlies. Like it really did mean a lot. For traveling and getting to Perth, it is one of the hardest places to get to. Perth being the most isolated place in Australia, or in the world, actually, the most isolated city. Tickets aren't cheap. I had to get some tickets very late minute due to some issues, and ended up costing an arm and a leg, which is also means why I wasn't able to be a Big Cheese, because I was in Perth at the time. Sorry, not Big Cheese, Pissmas. But you know what? It was worth it. The city of Perth is beautiful. A lot to look at. I thought there was nothing to do there, and I was busy pretty much every day, bar one where I would just stay at home and stay in the hotel and relax. And that was because it was too hot. That's the weather. It's just very dry heat, which I miss because now I'm very humid. Now going into the brackets that happened while I was away, so I'm going to go through a couple that I have up top. Starting at the start of the year was the GVP Esports. This one was the first one where I was interstate, and I felt very vulnerable because this was one of the first interstate ones. I was very packed, and I was expected to come 9th. I was very high seed at the time. I wasn't very great at this time, and I did get upset by Chuckstar, I believe was a Youngling player. I have a thing with losing to Younglings, and I ended up losing to Dag in losers as well, which is a Zelda player. Going into the tournament, I was very nervous playing. I was shooken up, and thank you to Scully, who went and was with me and just tried to talk me through it. It didn't work, but you know, it was good. You did help a little bit. But yeah, it was a great tournament to be at, and I really enjoyed my time there. And now going into the pre-BAM Fit Pixel for Smash. So this is a tournament that I went to before BAM. This is where I did pretty well. I was able to get out of pools, beating... so I was able to beat Sice and then lost to L. I believe the Sice match was on stream. It was. And then I versed L. I lost 2-0. I feel a little bit more comfortable going into L now. But I lost to... I was able to beat Mana, who was a Kirby from Queensland. I don't think they play much anymore. I haven't seen them in their name. And I was able to beat Jeans, who ended up PRing the season after, or the season after that. It was a big win for me. Terry, I felt really good. Also, I'll just go through the list of people that I've, some honorable mentions that I've been into this year. It's not a call out or anything like that. I just wanted to say my resume. I was able to beat Jeans, P9, Kai Chimera, Rambo, Mod, Kaido Roy, E-Man, and Turn Up. So for the most part, in terms of traveling, but E-Man was the only one that where I versed in terms of Sydney, but everyone else were interstaters, and I feel like I did really well into interstaters myself. So going into the Pixel Smash, I ended up losing to, who was it? To Mod, who I eventually get the run back at Big Cheese. So we'll go into that bracket. But yeah, it was a really good day. This Pixel I do remember fondly. It was a really nice event. I did enjoy it. But yeah, so obviously Pixel was just an amazing event, always. Now, the Super Barista Ghostly Grind. This was the pre-local for Phantom. And with anyone who knows what I was doing in Phantom was I was driving around Phantom constantly. So I didn't have time to practice because I was TOing C-Town Beatdown at the time. Thank you to everyone that showed up for that one. I loved that. But I was TOing and driving equipment around from Sydney to this place, to that place, to this place. Just trying to get events sorted for everyone, and I think we did a really good job in terms of the pre-locals. The pre-locals ran really well. It was just, I think Starforge ran a little bit late, but you know, it is what it is. The Ghosted Grind was one where it was super stacked and there was a lot of upsets. I'm not going to go through any, the upsets or anything like that. I'm just going to go through my performance. So my performance, I went 1-2. But getting upset in round one. So round one was P9. I upset P9 2-0. And then ended up losing to Kutz from WA. DK, lovely bloke. I love the guy so much. And so I went 1-2. Yeah, so that concludes with the Sydney, with Phantom. For Victory Road. So Victory Road was the Arcadian, and I came, like I said, second to Hoops. I was able to beat Toaster Panini, Avant-Garde, and then into the top 8 I was able to beat Cameroni 3-0, and then lost 3-2 to Hoops, and then was able to beat Thegoras in losers finals, and then lose to Harry again. Props to Harry, he just did an amazing job, and I love him bits. Now for Dancing Blade. Dancing Blade was the monthly that I went to. I think it was literally the same month. It was 2 weeks afterwards. And this one we had a lot of people come from Sydney. We had Cambo, Sumi, Kanga, Cry, and myself, and it was a really good event. I was seeded to go 9th, I believe, because I was seeded to go 9th. And at this tournament, I beat Kai Chimera. I lost to Sumi 3-0. I'll never be able to beat her. And then lost to Ants 3-1. And Ants is a great player, and it was a valiant effort from me, but he's much better. And yeah, so that was a really good event. Really enjoyed myself. Now the Pixel that I went to, this is the one that I came 5th at. Pixel 137. I was seeded to verse Zav in winners. Oh no, I was actually seeded to lose to B2. I can't remember who B2 played, but I was able to beat B2 2-1. One thing I did notice when going to Melbourne, and Melbourne only, I lost almost every single game one. Every single game one, and I had to play back from game 2 to 3. this was so hard on my mental, and it happened every tournament. And I genuinely cannot tell you a time where I won game 1. I genuinely cannot tell you. So I had to verse B2 and I won 2-1, and then I had to verse Nerpner. Nerpner is super good, was able to beat Zav at this tournament, and then I lost to and then I beat Nerpner, lost to Flo 3-1. Valiant effort, what can you do? Flo's amazing at the game. And then I lost to Zav and got the run back for the last time I beat him. But it was a super good tournament. Came 5th out of, it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was the most stacked tournament, but there's still 37 people. So 5th out of 37, like Victorian people, I think it's still really good. And this was just before the Arcadian. So going into the Arcadian, I did feel pretty good. Pretty hot and ready to go. But one thing I did find was with the Arcadian, there was going to be a lot more people and a lot harder. And I'll go into that one now. So I went the whole week before the Arcadian, and I beat this player Elegy. I don't remember who they played, but then I versus Nop. So Nop was a King K. Rool player from JML, and King K. Rool against a Pokemon trainer on stream against the whole crowd. I froze up. It could be a completely different result. It could be the same result now. It's like, it could be anything. But at that point in time, wearing my noise cancelling headphones, I could still hear Connor screaming for Nop. And that just means that just goes to show how intense the games were, and how intense it is to actually be at in another state, especially Melbourne. Going into Melbourne as an interstater, just be wary, because they are loud, but you know, it's cheering for their own crowd. That's what they're going to do. And I was able to take it over Dusk 2-1. Dusk, pretty good player. And then so I had to make the losers bracket. So I was actually stated to verse P9 in winners, but obviously not lost to P9. So if I go down to the bottom, where am I? I versed Core, don't remember who they played. Gal P, who I did lose at a pre-local at the pre-Phantom. I beat 2-0. And then Meme God. Meme God is a Wi-Fi player that went to the Arcadian, and I went 2-1 with him. And this was such a close set that I think if I was playing my best, I think I could have taken it, but you know, you can't get that all the time, and it's just about channeling that in a like sort of like instinct moment where you can just play off your instincts and not have to be able to think sometimes, because I think that's where I fault. But also like this was very stacked. This Arcadian had 183 people, and look at the people that got out at the same time as me. So Radio, Kenny, Sifo, Dan, like Cookie Zach, Nop also as well, and it's just like, it's a lot. It's so if I would have loved to have versus Homer as well, but you know, it is what it is. So I wasn't able to do it. Now going back into the next tournament. So this is the next tournament after everything. It's Big Cheese. Medium Cheese. So it's the pre-local for Big Cheese. I was seeded for round 1 to verse. Where are they? Zakora. Beat them 2-0. They played Terry and then Sephiroth. And then I had to verse Beat. It was 2-1 to beat in a matchup where I think I'm not fully knowledgeable and I think I can do better. But it was a super close game, and I always love versing Beat. Beat's like such a good player. So that sent me into losers from there. Now this is where I was in losers round 1. And I had to verse Strawberry Milk, but they DQ'd, and that would have been a PT Ditto, so that would have been rough in itself because I'm not too sure with that one. So then I had to verse Spewis, who's a Roy player from SA. Won that 2-1. I believe it was a 3-stock game 3 because I think he SD'd and then I water gunned his up B. Then verse Kato Roy, which was one of the toughest sets I had to do this year in terms of nerves. Not because I had a lot of people behind me, because I did, but it was flubbing the inputs. So there was a lot of things that just weren't happening, and versing a Rosa for the first time, a good one. I got to see a lot of different tech that I was not used to, but I was able to take it over because I do believe PT would win that over Rosa. And then I was also able to take it over Mod. So that was a huge win for me. Mod is a great player, only recently getting top 5 at Pismas. And so I was super happy with that win. And then eventually lost to Con for 17th. But you know what? It is a good effort in itself, I believe. So now, Big Cheese, I'm not going to go over it. I went my seed, nothing else to discuss. With Sundays at Subi, this is the tournament in Perth that I came third at. So I was seeded to verse Turn Up in winners semis, but I lost to Cheesy, a DK player, very young, very good. He's a very nice player. I lost to him 3-2, super disappointed, but you know what? I ended up still coming third. And going through the losers run. So I lost there, and I was able to beat B Seachers, I don't know who that is, and Shiny Pooza. Then played another PT, Seb. And the one thing I did like is I was able to see a lot more PTs throughout the year. I thought we were a dying breed, but I do think we're coming back. More people are starting to play them. So I was able to beat Seb, Death, and then lost 3-0 to Will. Will's a great player, knows the matchup like the back of his hand. Something that I'm not familiar with, playing against a Ryu. I wish he went Kazuya, but you know, it is what it is. Ryu's very good against Pokemon Trainer, especially Ivy, which is most of my game plan. Enigma 73 is was the second last tournament I attended interstate. The last one I'm not going to go through it because I placed my seed, whatever. But with Enigma, this is one I performed an upset, so I was able to beat Chef. Chef played super well, and I think we were both actually nervous going into it. It's that whole 8th and 9th seed that have to play each other's very hard. And I was able to beat him 2-1. And versing Turn Up as well. Turn Up was a lovely player I met for the first time I've known of Turn Up. Never really able to introduce myself until I saw him at the monthlies at Subi. And I was able to take it over 2-1. Lost to Teehee, still very rough in terms of matchup. Just don't know how to deal with that with Pac-Man. Yet again, another place where I'd rather shulk. And I lost to Jar. Jar played phenomenally. I went to Jar's place beforehand to get some friendlies, and Jar friendlies and tournament, Jar tournament. So Jar friendlies and Jar tournament are two different beings. They're two beasts in itself. Like, it was night and day. Jar is so good. But yeah, that's enough of Jar. I'm not going to gas him up too much. With 2023, I do want to continue traveling. But go to places that I haven't been. I'd still like to go to Sunshine, go visit the west of Melbourne. I'd like to go back to Perth, and I'd like to go to Queensland. Queensland is a scene that I have never been to. I know a lot of people in Queensland and people that I love so much, but it's something that I need to do in the new year. And I'd like to just travel a little bit more. Even though I did a lot this year, I'm going to be traveling more. Now, just to end the video off, I'm going to be starting a new series on my channel. I'm not too sure when. I've got to work out the logistics, but I'm going to be starting a new a series sort of highlighting mid-level players. I feel like there's a lot of effort to highlight high-level players in the scene right now, and what good they're doing. But I'd like to highlight the mid-level players and how they are processing, trying to get better, and how they are going about it. And I think it'd be very interesting to share with other people that are also in the same space where they're just about to break through to the top level, and just sort of the road and journey that they have to do. So this is something that I'm going to be working on throughout the year. Hopefully, I'm not too sure how long it's going to last, but I'll see if I can get a few guests. Hopefully people that have never been on the PR. And then sort of trying to break through and see their perspective on how things are. But yeah, I'd like to. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this. If you guys have any suggestions, any comments, please leave them down below. I also have my Twitter. I'll put in that in the description. Just message me on there. More than happy to talk over. But yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know. This is something that I didn't think I was going to enjoy, but I did. It's very different, and if you did like it, please let me know. I'd like to make more of this content. I also wanted to mention towards the end, I wanted to thank everyone, anyone that came and spoke to me or interacted with me or made me feel comfortable in any scene. Anyone that traveled with me, anyone that literally said, "Hey, how are you?" or just checked up on me. You guys made my year. I wouldn't be the person I am in this scene if I didn't meet you guys. Yeah, and everything I do basically is to give back to the community, and I want to give back more. And I believe with this, I'll be able to give back more. So I thank you to anyone. I'm not going to name names because there's too many to name. Every single interstater, every single person in Sydney that I interact with, BKB guys, obviously, being a part of BKB. I wanted to say thank you. So from the bottom of my heart, I hope everyone had a lovely Christmas and have a lovely New Year, and let's move forward to 2023.